All right, GBU, a little bit of a new look today. We're talking about the coaching hires. We're going to be doing another video of the Super Bowl. So keep in mind, this coaching hires, we're talking about it on Friday. What's it, February 3rd today? February 2nd,
February
February
4th.
4th, actually.
Fourth.
So Friday, February 4th, we're talking about it. So by the time this is out, we could see teams like the Saints, Dolphins, Texans could be hiring head coaches. But we'll get started right away with the Giants hiring Bills offensive coordinator Brian Daboll. As you know, how could I forget JD Reese? How are you guys?
We're great. We got a nice little
I'm
new
too excited.
format.
I'm too excited here by
Very
our new
excited.
setup, which will only get better.
It's endless possibilities for off season, for baseball, for anything we do for next year. It's going to be great for football. So what a look we've got here. And I'm excited to use this for all its features. We can get some clips in here. It's going to be fun.
Yeah,
and just
very
to make
excited.
it clear, we're going to be going through all the coaches and giving them a grading A to F on the teams that they were signing for.
So we start with the Giants. Brian Daboll, a lot of controversy around this one due to Brian Flores, but we won't really touch on that as the Giants seem in the clear with the allegations and the lawsuit and everything. So we go to Daboll. I think Daboll was the best hiring of the cycle. The Giants ran for under 8 touchdowns this past season. They're looking to develop quarterbacks. Daboll's bringing in a staff that I really like. Patrick Graham, they kept him. I like that move. And Mike Kafka from Kansas City, I've loved for a few years now. And I think that if there's any 2 guys that you should have hired to develop quarterbacks, it's Kafka and Daboll. Yeah. They've done a good job with Josh Allen. Daboll's done a great job everywhere he's gone to call plays, even though he was on some terrible teams in 2009, 2012, not his fault. I'd like to hear what you guys think about this, because I'm very excited about this. I think out of all the head coaching hires we're going to talk about today, this is the best one. I think the Giants got it right, but who knows? Got to get some players first before we can actually see this.
Yeah, absolutely, KB. This is without a doubt my favorite head coach signing in the NFL so far. They brought in Kafka, kept Graham, which are just 2 great moves. Kafka, I'm hoping, combined with Daboll, is going to be able to utilize guys like Kadarius Toney, very similar play style to McCole Hardman, Tyreek Hill, who play a huge role in the Chiefs' offense. See if they can get Barkley going back up, but the Giants have made almost had a perfect offseason so far with their signings. The guys they've brought in are all guys who you would dream to have on your team, especially a guy like Kafka. Daboll has experience working with Belichick and Saban. He's going to take this team in a much better direction than Joe Judge ever could. So I'm really excited to see Daboll take the Giants to the level they should be performing.
It can't get much worse than those last 2 years of Judge, especially this past season. So it's just an upgrade in general, and especially from Dave Gettleman to Joe Schoen.
Yeah,
I think for the first time in a long time, I really think the Giants are winning the offseason. They don't usually with their free agent signings the last few years. Gettleman's kind of put them in a hole with the Galladay signing, all that. He's in the past. They got to move on. And Daboll, I love this hire. I think it's an A hire. I loved his press conference. He was very honest. He was saying, we're not going. I mean, maybe they do, but next year, don't expect like 13 wins out of this team. They're going to try to gut it down, redo it. Shane, their new GM, they're going to do this thing together. I love their coaching staff, though. It's definitely a home run start for the Giants, who pretty much are finalizing their staff going into the free agency and then the draft. And this is, like we've said countless times when we've talked about the Giants and the Jets, actually, that this is one of those make or break off seasons. You got 2 top 10 picks. Shane's got his guy. Now it's time to get to work. You got to go get the players. You got to go get the talent, and they got to put it all together, because the Giants have been one of the worst franchises in football the last few years. So to me, it's a step in the right direction. I think Daboll was the no-brainer. I know whatever came out with Flores, I think he's a good coach, but either way, I think Daboll was their guy, no matter what's being said by the media, and I think it's a great hire.
Yeah, and I feel like Daboll doesn't feel like a Belichick guy to me, the way he did his press conference. It's not like Flores and Judge and Matt Patricia, where it's totally trying to replicate who Belichick is, because you can't do that. Belichick's one of one. None of these other guys will ever be close to him. None of these other guys have even won a Super Bowl without him. So we're going to talk about the skepticism of a Belichick coach next, but I have to say Daboll seems down to earth, seems chilled out, like he's going to bring his own brand. He just doesn't seem to be a Belichick guy. He happened to work with Belichick. That's how he came up, So he just seems like a really chill guy you want to play for, and he's not a version other than who he actually is, it seems like. Very excited about this one. Guys like Galladay and Tony have to be finding the end zone next year. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with Daniel Jones, Saquon,
Make
Evan
a break
Ingram's a
year
free agent.
for
Yeah, got a lot of
Jones.
tough
This is
decisions.
it.
Yes, Jones, 4th season, you have to assume they're not renewing that 5th-year option with Joe Shane. Why would he?
Yeah.
He's not going to. So they're either going to win 3 games next year, 3 to 5 games next year, and move on at quarterback, or they're going to win 8 to 9 and stick around with Jones at quarterback. So either way is a win-win for the Giants. After next season is when they'll start seeing, where the organization's really going. But I think aside from this Brian Flores thing, all positive with the Giants.
Mm-hmm. So far, yeah.
All positive so far.
This is the first time in my recent memory where I think the Giants have had a pretty perfect offseason up until this point. Even with Daboll was their guy either way, no matter what's being said by Flores and their camp. But I think the Giants, in the first time for a long time, have had a really, really good offseason. And I'm interested to see what they do in free agency. They're not going to do much. It's probably going to be a lot of cutting guys, a lot of dumping cap, a lot of ripping this thing to the ground and building it back up in the draft. So I think you got to be very optimistic if you're a Giants fan.
Also, I just want to touch on John Mara's conduction of this search and this offseason. They hired the right guys, but he did such a bad job. Why are you enticing or, leading a coach on in Brian Flores before you even hired your general manager? It was just terrible
Mara,
job.
Yeah, it's irresponsible.
It's a shame to see what Mara has done in the last few years. He's kind of just like brought down the whole reputation of this franchise because the Giants were regarded as they're still one of the biggest franchises.
Yeah.
They did win 2 Super Bowls in the 2000s, 2007, 2011. So they're like, it was all there. And then the last 5 years or so, Mara has just been tainting everything. Yeah. I mean, it's just, he's pretty incompetent as an owner, I'll say. I can't stand the guy either.
All right, so you guys' grades for Daboll, I got an A+, only A+ of the coaching cycle.
I got an A.
Yeah, I've got an A.
Yeah, all right, so we go to Las Vegas, where the super assistant from New England, Josh McDaniels, has been hired by the Raiders to be their head coach. That was earlier this week. McDaniels is my 5th best hiring of this cycle so far. We still have 3 more hirings to go, like we said, in Miami, in Houston, in New Orleans. But McDaniel, I got a C+ for him. It could work out. I just think this is, like I had said about Daboll, a Belichick guy, but this is a real Belichick guy who's going to try to bring that in. I think he'll improve the Raiders, though. I think they should have stuck with Bisaccia, but I think overall it's a better, atmosphere than what Gruden had going. Mm-hmm. It seems like it'll be. And the Raiders, just a little stat for you that I think will improve a lot, were bottom 5 in the league last year in red zone efficiency. I think McDaniels will definitely help that a lot. He already said getting Josh Jacobs the football in the red zone and getting creative with him is his priority for them. And overall, McDaniels, he hasn't been a bad play caller, but a little too conservative for me. I think this is a big loss for New England, though, but I'll hear what you guys have to say about Vegas before we get into, everything else.
Yeah, it might be my least favorite hire of the whole coaching carousel. I'm not sure what to make about Kevin O'Connell. We'll get to him. I haven't heard much about him. So obviously this all has to play out. We don't know how any of these guys are going to do until it actually happens. I just think the McDaniels hire for me is a B-. I think that's pretty generous because you gave him a C+. I just think the whole the organization in the long term I think is better off. They've got the new GM. And then the new GM brought in his guy. I really think the players had an attachment to Bisaccia, so I don't think they're taking it particularly too well. But I think as a whole, the organization, the Raiders, they're moving in the right direction. I just don't know how they're going to be next year, and I really don't know how McDaniels is going to be as a head coach because we know what happened his first time around, and then he spurned the Colts when he was going to go there, and then he decides to go to the Raiders, which is pretty sudden. We didn't hear much about McDaniels.
Yeah, we heard about it was
radar.
all Harbaugh for the whole. Yeah. That's why. So I'll just say right now, him and O'Connell are my bottom 2 because these are 2 teams that could have had Jim Harbaugh and didn't. So if these guys don't work out and Harbaugh is winning Big Ten championships at Michigan, or if he ends up going to another NFL job, despite what he's saying, I still think he's going to try to get back into the NFL. But
at some point,
these are just two guys that could have went into the NFL. So, Reese, what are you thinking here with McDaniels?
Yeah, so out of all the head coach signings, this is bottom of the barrel for me. I will admit that I might be a little biased because I'm a Jets fan. I don't think McDaniels is that great of a. He's a good play caller. I don't think he's that great. I don't think he's enough. I don't think it's enough to be a head coach and lead a team, especially over a guy like Bisaccia, who, in my opinion, should have had his interim tag removed. I don't consider him an interim head coach. He is a head coach. He was very good,
and then he almost goes to Jacksonville and gets a job.
Yeah, I thought he had a legitimate shot there.
Yeah, I think he did.
He'll get a good job somewhere else. So
he'll get a great special teams coach job, and he'll be right back into a head coaching spot, I think.
Yeah, and I had this at a C, and the only reason it isn't any lower for me, I know I'm all over him, but I liked how Vegas is bringing in McDaniels, and they brought in Dave Ziegler, who's Belichick's director of player personnel for the Pats. So I could see what they're trying to do, bring in some solid pieces, some guys in the draft like they haven't been able to do, try and turn that culture around, make it a team that's going to take guys who stay. But I don't really like the signing too much at all.
And you had to know though, once I guess he didn't know because they were still interviewing him, but once Ziegler took over, it was kind of like he has no attachment to Bisaccia, like he wasn't there when the players when they rallied for him. So he wanted his own guy, and he got McDaniels, he got him to follow him to Vegas. I think the general direction is there. I don't know how good of a head coach McDaniels is, and we're gonna have to see.
Yeah, so I think in New England, this is just my final piece on McDaniels. New England, I think, is a pretty big loss for them, developing Mac Jones, who you're trying to see him take a leap from a conservative quarterback to a quarterback that could win you games next season. If you replace McDaniels with Adam Gase, it's just it's not a good thing. I know that Gase won't be the bad head coach that he was, the disaster he was with the Jets and the Dolphins in New England, because one, he's under Belichick, and two, he's not the head coach. He's not the main guy, but this is not a guy you want developing your quarterback. He did a terrible job with Tannehill. He ruined Sam Darnold, and he admitted that after he got fired. So I don't like that swap. If you guys have anything else on McDaniels,
I'm ready to move it on to Coach Hack.
Coach Hack here, Nathaniel Hackett, offensive coordinator from the Packers, hired by the Broncos. Clearly, in everyone's eyes, a move to try to get Aaron Rodgers and or Devontae Adams to Denver. Also, though, I think that he's building a pretty good staff there. JD, you have a lot of good insight to that. And hear what you guys think. I have Hackett here. Let me get this grade out. Hackett as the fourth best hire. I give him a B. I thought really good hire. I thought it was first one of the whole process. I thought it was pretty clear from the couple days before that it was going to be him. But good hire here. Hopefully it works out if you get Rodgers. The only issue for him, same thing with McDaniels, which we didn't even touch on, is you got Herbert and Mahomes 4 times a year, and those teams are only going to get better.
Yeah, I got the Hackett hiring by the Broncos as a B+. I was close to putting it in the A's. It definitely wouldn't be an A because it's not on the same level as Daboll. So it would probably be, it was between an A- or a B+ for me. I think Hackett's a really good head coach. It's to be determined to see what they do. I honestly don't think they're getting Rodgers, and I don't think that's why they hired him. I think he got the job just because he's very respected. He's won the last 3 years in the Packers. He took the Jags to the AFC Championship game as their offensive coordinator. He's seen it all. I think he was probably very good in the interview. He seems like a very enthusiastic guy, wants to win bad. I think he's a great offensive mind too. I don't know if he'll be calling plays. I know they hired the Packers tight ends coach, Jake O'Toole or something like that. I'm not sure. I haven't heard much about him. We're going to get to the other cast of Packers that have left soon too, and to Chicago. So he didn't get Getsy. I know that was probably his top choice. It's just it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Rodgers, and then interesting to see what he does with that. Without Rodgers, if he doesn't get him, I think he's a good coach, and I think it's a B+ hiring. It's going to be interesting to see what they do in that division against Mahomes, what they do at quarterback, because they've got weapons on offense, they've got players on defense. It's all there. I don't even know if you trade for Rodgers, you're setting yourself back draft capital wise for the next few years. So Either way, I think this is a good hire, but it's going to be interesting to see first-time head coach how he does.
Yeah, I had Hackett's hiring at a B, but I feel like it does have the potential to go to an A or even an A plus, depending on if they get Rodgers. I truthfully feel like if they were to get Rodgers, I know you don't believe it, JD, but if they were to, I think they become easily a top 5 team in the NFL.
Oh yeah,
and I feel like if Rodgers is there, Hackett's just going to be able to shine, call as many play calls as he wants.
Do we
with
know
no
if he's
limit
calling
at
plays?
quarterback?
I don't think
he
that's
didn't really
known yet.
say whether or not.
No,
but
we
either
don't
way,
know.
you know how it
I'm
goes.
assuming,
Guy doesn't call the plays, but when he has to, he will. It's all his philosophy and everything. So
yeah, and I also just love the shift from towards the future from a defensive head coach, and Fangio's great. No disrespect to him, but offensive minds, offensive coaches have just become the NFL. So
Yeah.
I do really like the way the Broncos are moving in every direction, and I think Hackett's just a little bit of a cherry on top for the way the Broncos are moving right now.
Yeah, I think guys that'll benefit from this is definitely Javonte Williams. We saw what A.J. Dillon became this past season. Hackett and LaFleur did a really good job. It's not just Rodgers is a great quarterback. They did a really good job calling a good offense the whole year until that poor fate in the divisional round. But the team, I think it's a good hire. I think that there is part of it is trying to get Rodgers in, but you don't hire a guy to try to bring in a $50 million quarterback solely because you want him to do that. If you do, that's a terrible decision. Broncos in a little turmoil right now for Hackett as he starts too. They have no owner. Peyton Manning, John Elway, and a little bit of a bidding war. I don't know how Elway will fare now after the situation. But let's move on. NFC North, pardon me. As Eberflus to the Bears, personally one of my favorites. I have been on Eberflus for quite some time now. Good track record. He's my third best coaching hire of the cycle. B+ for him. Really like him. I know that he's kind of an unpopular candidate. I think he's gotten interviews, though, every season he's been in Indianapolis, turned around a bad Indianapolis defense. And guys like Darius Leonard and Jalen Smith and Leighton Vander Esch was there the year after. Sean Lee, I meant to say, really thrived under him as a linebackers. And I just want to, what's the ceiling for a guy like Roquan Smith, who I feel like has all the talent in the world and has been great, but maybe just scratching the surface. So B+ for me on Eberflus. I think he brings this defense to the next level. And JD could tell us a little bit about his new offensive coordinator, which is also another very good hire on this staff, I think.
Yeah. Packers former quarterback coach and passing game coordinator Luke Getsy, who he hired. And, with Eberflus, he's a great defensive mind. That side of the ball is probably going to be pretty good next year. I'd say they got a lot of pieces, but it's all about, can they bring Justin Fields' his development together, and can they get the right people in place to help him become the best quarterback he can be? And I think they're off to a great start. I know they're probably finalizing their staff now. I'm not sure who all the other coaches are, but Luke Getsy is their offensive coordinator. He will call plays, something he wouldn't have been able to do in Green Bay, which is why he left. And I know there's a connection there. Eberflus knows him somehow. There was always a connection. He wanted him bad when he first got the head coaching gig. I think Getsy is going to be one of the great young coaches in this league. Aaron Rodgers loves him. You hear great things about him from the Packers. He's a really brilliant mind. And one day he's very young now, very young, but one day I think if he does it all, keeps on this trajectory, he'll be a head coach in this league. And I think it's a great hire for Chicago, whose main operation here is get Justin Fields to be the best player he can be, which will maximize the Bears' potential. And I think Eberflus as a whole, I think it's a B+. I agree. He's a really solid defensive mind. He's been in head coaching carousels for a while now. It kind of caught me by surprise because I didn't really hear much about Eberflus to the Bears, and then it happened. I was like, it's pretty good hire. I'm still not too worried about the Bears winning that many football games. They're still a pretty rough roster, but the pieces are there, and I also think the Bears are heading in the right direction.
Yep.
Yeah, you guys kind of hit on everything I had. I have the hiring at a B. My favorite thing about it was bringing in Luke Getsy. Obviously, we all know how good that Green Bay offense is, but I also like how good he can make this Bears defense. They have a ton of personnel pieces and a bunch of ways that the defense is. I think they're going to be able to click, and defense wins championships. So if you're putting Fields behind a good defense, that's already a great start. So if they're able to develop Fields and he can even play average or a little bit above average this year, they can be a nice little team to sneak in at the 7th seed.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And if we want to just, for time purposes, move on from Eberflus here, stick in the NFC North. My worst hire of the cycle gets a D. Kevin O'Connell to Minnesota. O'Connell is the only coach remaining right now as a coordinator, still playing as he's preparing for the Super Bowl in 2 weeks. So he's not officially hired yet. He's expected to be hired, though. This and McDaniels, I said before, the problem here is that they let Jim Harbaugh walk out of the door. So a proven coach who's had success in San Fran, who's had success in Michigan, a guy that I think is a great coach. I've wanted the Jets to hire him for as long as he's been at Michigan. So that just tells you, as a Jets fan, I think very highly of him. If these guys aren't good, you could have had Harbaugh. He interviewed with you. He didn't even interview with the Raiders because they didn't ask him, but the job was his if they wanted him to have it. And just these, like I said before, these guys have to be good, or it's just a really bad hire, because you let a proven coach with Super Bowl experience, he didn't win it, walk out the door, and that's such a rare thing that a really good former head coach walks into your building for an interview.
And you have to assume it went pretty, like, it was a 9-hour interview. They probably talked about a lot of stuff. He probably toured the facilities. I don't even know what you can possibly do for 9 hours, but after he walked away from that interview this morning, he goes on that whatever talk show radio and says that he's done with the NFL and he's done. Like, he probably very badly wanted the Vikings job, and they said no, which was a shock, because I really thought down the coming days that he was going to be the head coach of the Vikings. I really thought Jim Harbaugh would be, and it didn't happen. So O'Connell has to be good. He really does.
So KB, I'm gonna disagree with you a little bit here. I don't hate it as much as you do. Obviously, letting Harbaugh walk out the door is a mistake. We can all agree on that. But I looked into it a little bit. There's evidence. He's been known as a guy that's very smart and detail oriented. He's been working behind a guy like Sean McVay. He's the only coordinator left that's still playing in the Super Bowl. I feel like this Vikings team is good enough to be a 500 team without a great coach. But I think the risk of this could be worth the reward if O'Connell turns out to be.
Oh, I can totally agree with that.
So I have this at a C+, maybe even a B-, just based off the fact that I feel that the reward is much higher than the risk here. And if they're not good, then I mean, it's a mistake letting Harbaugh go. But it's at that point, it's in the past. I think this is a good risk.
The path that they're looking for here is Zach Taylor's, certainly. You're seeing McVay in the Super Bowl playing against his assistant who got hired, and it wasn't popular at the time. I criticized that one at the time. Am I making the same mistake again, being too hard on it? I don't know. We'll see. But the Bengals didn't have Jim Harbaugh walk into their building. But, Reese, I totally could agree with your point that the reward as a general manager going through that hiring process, as an owner, seeing the Super Bowl matchup right now of Taylor and McVay, two young coaches, good offensive minds, same path as O'Connell's taking. I can totally understand why you would see a great reward on the other side of that. We'll see who his coordinators are that he brings in and what that staff starts to look like.
And
because
I also just feel like he's an offensive guy. So you're going into an offense with Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen and Dalvin Cook and Kirk Cousins. It should be a challenge to fuck that offense up.
Yeah.
But obviously it wasn't.
I don't think I think the offense is going to be great next year. I've seen that he's a brilliant offensive mind. I saw somewhere that he's the one who schemes up all the plays. He creates the plays for McVay, and then McVay calls from him. So he's not this offense is probably going to be very good next year. They just got to bring it all together, and the Vikings are already a 500 team. So adding to their win total will probably get them the 7-6 seed in the NFC, because that bottom half is not very good.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right, we move on to our last one, most recent one. Doug Pederson to the Jaguars. So McDaniels too, sorry. I was going to say the only former head coach to be hired in the cycle, but McDaniels as well. Pederson won a Super Bowl with Philly. Very rare that a Super Bowl winning coach leaves his team ever. And
especially goes to the Jaguars.
And then he ends up taking a year off and going to Jacksonville. Pederson, weird end in Philadelphia that I still don't know what to make of it 2 years later or a year later, but weird end in Philadelphia after they won the Super Bowl, kind of just totally tanked it. He got the axe instead of Howie Roseman. The Eagles make the playoffs this past year. I think that Pederson really helps the development of Trevor Lawrence. If this was my second best of the cycle, I give it an A, just because you're getting a former head coach that is a good offensive coach, whether you think he's a good coach or not. He's very good offensively. He's going to help Trevor Lawrence a lot. But the problem here is Trent Baalke still. You let Byron Leftwich leave. If he was your favorite guy and you let him leave because you were going to keep Trent Baalke, it shows the incompetence of Jacksonville. It shows just all the reasons that Pederson should not have even went there if he could have gotten a job in New Orleans or – Miami's better than Jacksonville, and they're paying their coaches to lose games. So this was the worst job to take. I think it's worse than Houston even. This is the worst job to take, and Pederson took it. I think he's a good coach, but it just won't work out because of everything else. Never does.
Yeah, this signing confused me a little bit. I'm not sure if the Jaguars were trying to do the similar situation to Andy Reid coming to the Chiefs, where it's just a complete revamp, where you got your quarterback already. But I think Pederson's in here more of just a placeholder. He's going to try and make the Jags somewhat functional, organized, and respected organization because they haven't been in a long time. I feel like that's his purpose while he's here. I'm not sure exactly how long he'll end up staying, especially if they have a really shitty next 2 or 3 seasons. But I feel like this is just he's being brought in to kind of set a culture and bring them back to a normal football team, which they haven't been. They've been a disgrace to the NFL.
I saw too the other day that so Shad Khan was interviewing with Baalke for these head coaches, and during the interviews, apparently Shad Khan was asking the candidates, "What do you think about Trent Baalke?" with Baalke sitting right there, which is just, I'm telling you, Byron Leftwich was probably like, that dude is a fucking clown right in front of him. And then Shad Khan was like, all right, this guy's done. And I don't blame Leftwich. I have this as an A- hire. I think Doug Pederson is the best, one of the better hires for the Jaguars. I would have liked.
Do we think? So I'm going to ask you. Sorry to interrupt you.
No,
before I forget. Do we think that losing Byron Leftwich and potentially Adrian Wilson as the general manager, because if Leftwich came, that would be the case, is better? Are they better off with Doug Pederson as the head coach?
No.
I agree. Okay.
The Baalke, I have it as an A- just because I think it's a great hire, but because Baalke's still there, it's not an A.
Yeah, you're not going to get
plus.
players there. So
it's just as long as the management is terrible and the owner's incompetent. This is probably going to be the same Jaguars. I like Doug Pederson's chances to build a nice culture there and completely start over from what Urban Meyer destroyed. I think he's a great head coach. This is the worst job. You have what you think is your franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
So hopefully you can unlock everything that we've seen from Trevor Lawrence in college, why he was the number 1 pick, because he was certainly not getting helped by his staff last year. So it's interesting to see
something in Lawrence.
Yeah, Lawrence is still the number 1 pick. He's still he was the highly regarded prospect from last year,
and you can tell hell of a kid too, just because he
I was complimenting him all season.
Looked like a great leader. Was never talking bad about his coaches, about the organization, even though he probably had the right to do so, because
you couldn't have blamed him if he did.
Yeah, they were hanging him out to dry all year. They were not helping him. I'm very excited to see who Pederson hires around him for his staff, and what the Jaguars do with the number 1 pick in the draft, and what they do in free agency, because they probably got a lot of cap space because they have no good players on that team. And it sucks to say that this is the worst job for Pederson. I think there was a lot better options,
especially getting a second chance. You get a second chance. Usually, got to make it the second chance jobs this year would have been, Denver. You could have said the Giants just because of the Giants, but I don't even think so. But Denver, I include the Saints as one because of the Saints' successful front office that you're going into. I know it's going to be a rough first year probably, but you're going in with a good front office and ownership. But who else? Denver, Vegas, McDaniels got that one.
Vikings.
Vikings.
Yeah.
But maybe he just wasn't getting those jobs, and he probably missed
I almost
coaching.
would have just held out another year if you wanted to.
Yeah, the Jags.
Did Mike McCarthy hold out for a year or 2 years? I was just trying to think. He held out for a year, right?
1 year. He held off. Didn't go with the Jets. It was the only job he would take.
Yes.
Yeah, and
well, we hired Gase instead. So
yeah. Either way.
Yeah. So this is make or break for probably Doug's coaching career. He could always have,
unless he has a decent 4 years there with a bad roster. This is his last stop. You know,
if they're winning more than like 5 games a year for the Jaguars, I mean, they would be like put him in the Hall of Fame because this team sucks. So they got to really build it up, and we're a long way from talking about slipping into a bottom tier wildcard spot because there are a lot of good AFC teams, and the Jaguars are not one of them. But I'm very interested to see what Pederson does.
There's 11 or 12 teams in the AFC next year trying to make the playoffs. Jacksonville is not one of them. So,
but Jacksonville, they think they've got their quarterback. So that's one of the bigger problems out of the way. Now it's all about putting it together, getting him the right guys. And
they have a guy that, if developed properly, will be competing with Mahomes, Herbert, Allen.
It's Trevor Lawrence. He's one of the
that's a big ask for Jacksonville's organization. It's a big ask for them, but it's the price you pay for being good enough to go number one. So, any other comments on these head coaches or?
No, I think we'll just touch. So we got the Saints, the Texans, and who else? Dolphins. So what do we think? Does Bieniemy have a shot in the Saints? Probably not. I just heard his name out there.
I don't think the Saints have a shot at Bieniemy. I think he's staying away.
I think Dennis Allen's getting that job.
I think Dennis Allen's going to get the job. I think if he doesn't, I think it will be Aaron Glenn, who was their secondary coach, defensive coordinator now in Detroit. He's gotten a lot of head coach interviews for the last few years, and it's always been like, he's just everyone's fulfillment for the Rooney Rule. From what I've read, that's not the case. He actually has been a serious. I remember when the Jets hired Adam Gase, Aaron Glenn was a D-backs coach for the Saints. That's 3 years ago now. And as a D-backs coach, you got a second interview and a serious shot at being a head coach. There's something to be said about that. He's their second best odds for that one. But I think it'll be Dennis Allen.
Yeah, and then the Texans, I mean, how bad is this?
Texans, I think it's going to be Flores.
I think Flores.
Yeah, if they hire McCown, though, how bad is that?
I mean,
moving on.
If they hire McCown, it's a disaster.
You're moving on from Cully to Josh McCown, who was just a quarterback.
I think that they have. I think they have a dilemma here of they like both guys. McCown, the backlash is you just hired a guy with no NFL experience, and unfortunately, another white hire that probably was not the right guy to hire. So it's just not good in those regards, even if they do like him. And the guy wasn't even a great quarterback, so he doesn't even, it's not like you hire Tom Brady in 5 years, with no head coaching experience, or Peyton Manning. It's like, this is Josh McCown. And exactly. And so guy's never coached in the NFL. He's never been an assistant. He's just been, like quarterback coach as a player.
Yeah, as a player.
But then Brian Flores is suing your boss right now. So if you really like him, does the NFL want you to hire him? What's the repercussions internally with your relationship with the league to hire Brian Flores?
Yeah.
I think Brian Flores is the right hire. I think
so too.
Absolutely.
I think they should.
And if you're Nick Caserio, you don't want to worry about a quarterback. And I know that Davis Mills it's optimistic to build around Davis Mills. He looked solid, but you don't want to worry about failing with that. And you could get Deshaun Watson out of retirement for Houston. I know that, you might not be able to. I don't know what goes on there. But if there's any possible way of doing that, it's Flores.
And they wanted to do everything they could to keep Watson last offseason. So
the Texans really got their handful, man. They got Deshaun Watson. They might sign Brian Flores or Josh McCown. These guys, you got to make.
I just think if you hire
even a
Flores,
third,
there definitely is, but we're just probably not even hearing of it. But I just think if you hire Flores, between him, Caserio, maybe you get back Watson. I think Flores is just a great football mind. Like, I know he had a power struggle in Miami, but if you can just find a way to make it work, I feel like that's just the best direction for the Texans. I don't know.
All right,
I just think
2 years.
And then the Dolphins.
Houston Chronicle.
What do we got? The some mystery candidate. It's probably a mystery candidate.
John McClain, good reporter, Houston Chronicle. You've weighed in with a lot of opinions on Josh McCown as Texans head coach, and a couple of them are actually positive. What's going on here? Let's go, pal. Okay, so there's another guy, Mike Munchak from Denver.
I've
who
heard
was
the
with
name.
Vic Fangio, but this guy McLean is saying likely to be back under Hackett. So he's probably a defensive coordinator for Fangio. Let me look.
Yeah, he's probably on the defensive side of the ball somewhere if they're going to keep him around.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you would think, right? Oh, actually, so he's like the most highly regarded offensive line coach left in the league.
Oh, wow.
It's Mike Munchak on the market. Steelers interim head coach, interim offensive line coach Chris Morgan leaves for what? What is going on?
It's just a mess in Houston. We have
It is
no
just
idea.
a mess in Houston.
Like,
I mean, we're
ever
between
going...
a former journeyman quarterback, a guy that's suing your employer, who I think is a good coach in Brian Flores, and Mike Munchak, a free agent offensive line coach. These are our options?
Horrible.
The only offensive line coach you could justify hiring in the league today is Stenovich.
Yeah, and he just got the Packers OC job. But I think the Texans is a better job than the Jaguars.
Okay, so here's what happened. So Munchak, this guy Mike Munchak, was the offensive line coach for the Steelers while they were great. While they had like Pouncey and all those guys at the high of like Le'Veon Bell and everything. Then Fangio got hired and he went to Denver. And now he's the third option for what a disaster.
Yeah, just don't even consider him at that point.
All right. We good?
I'd say so.
Very good. So next video is going to be Super Bowl preview. We might be doing 2 of those because we have, there's like 6 weeks between the AFC Championship and the Super Bowl. Pro Bowl live stream. No, I'm kidding.
Fuck the Pro Bowl, man. But
thanks
that's
for
all
watching.
we got.
Sky's the limit. New format. We're excited over this. Make sure to check out TikTok and all that fun stuff. Putting the coaching stuff on that. That's where we'll round out the coaching hires. I'll round those out on Miami. They're not getting a video. Miami, New Orleans. What do you guys think about Miami? We need to talk about them.
It's McDaniel or Kellen Moore, right?
They're a disaster too. I don't think
any of those guys. I don't think any of those guys are ready to be.
No, those 2 guys seem very. McDaniel 1 year as an OC.
But once we have all the coaches hired and the last 3 teams hire someone, I'll throw up a post on Instagram with our grades and stuff.
Yeah, and in all honesty, I mean, we're all praying for baseball here to start up.
Yeah, the lockout.
NBA is a bit of a dud right now, especially for the Knicks. We were not going to go deep into like the national spectacle of those leagues or for baseball, just talking the Yankees, Mets. But hopefully that comes back soon. Next video, Super Bowl. Make sure to check that out. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at the GBU Pod. We're at the GBU Pod on all platforms. One day we will begin using Twitter. There is an account there, but one day we'll begin using it. Make sure to subscribe and like also. Thanks for watching.
Yep.